out of the way so you can see my curtain backdrop. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Tracy, and these curtains are the backdrop to most of my videos. I make upcycling tutorials on fashion, clothes, purses, accessories, things like that. And I've gotten some questions about these curtains and a lot of how did you make them? Well, I'm going to show you the no-sew way to make them. Now, everything for the most part is glued except for the lace fringe. And I could have glued that too, but I sewed it just because I'm kind of a fast sewer and it was quicker than gluing, but totally can be glued. So I'm going to show you how I started. First, I want to show you the very top. They're just simple curtains with a rod pocket hung on a long cafe rod. And these are curtain panels from Walmart, and they're very plain. I decorated them, of course, but they started out just this neutral plain color. I have 3 panels that are 83 inches tall and 53 inches wide. They actually end right about here, the actual curtain. And I have 3. You will probably have an even number if you're doing a window, either like 2 panels on each side or curtains to cover the whole window. Now you could either put these on the side of your window and have them non-functional and just decorative. Maybe you have blinds, or if you want to cover a whole window like this, maybe you want to have kind of a metal curtain holdback to stick them into when you want to open your window. Okay, I'll show you how I made these. First of all, let's talk about the top part before we get to the lace. All I did was glue some doilies all over. You know, I have rectangle, I just saw like a rectangle, circular, you know, and I just spaced them here and there, whatever I felt, and glued them on. And then to make it a little more fringy and boho, I added like 2 strips of lace, just randomly cutting it out of my lace stash, my remnants, and I glued them, like 2 onto each doily. That's it for the top part. Now let's talk about the bottom part. Okay, so what this consists of is 2 layers of lace, a bottom layer here, and a layer on top. I have fabric flowers and lots of jewels and pearls glued in amongst everything else. And I'll give you a better close-up of some of those when we get to that part. But first, what you need to do is decide, everyone's decor is different. So I wanted mine floor to ceiling with a little bit of puddling on the floor. I wanted to graze the floor a little bit just so they're kind of soft and have a little movement. And so I had to decide how much I wanted to add to the bottom of the curtain to make it do that. And for me, it was about 23 inches. So what I'm going to show you, I'll take you to my table, and I have a little demonstration set up of how I attached the bottom fringe to the curtain. I actually sewed it, but I'm going to do a gluing demonstration. As far as the lace and materials I used to make the strips or fringe, I went to my stash and I used a lot of lace. I tried to find anything that was 23 inches long. I have sheer fabric in there. I have strips of bed sheets in there. My favorite thing is to find, now I just recently found these at the thrift store for $4.99 a piece. They're lace tablecloths. They're beautiful and they're big and they give you a lot of fringe. Okay, I'm doing a little mini version since I don't need curtains right now. So I'll pretend this rectangle is 23 inches tall and long, a lot longer than this, probably the whole length of the curtain and more. And I am just going to cut strips. Now, the curtains behind me, I hand cut with my scissors and developed tendonitis over the years and doing all of that. So Now I just use an electric scissors, and it saves my wrist. So I will cut strips various sizes, and they will range from 1 inch to about 6 inches. Sometimes I let the piece dictate how wide I make it, but typically about 3 inches. So I'll just cut a bunch of strips. Until you think you have enough, which, depending on how wide your curtain is going to be a lot, most likely. And we are going to overlap them, so make sure you cut plenty and of all different textures and fabrics. Now, I am just going to use my hot glue gun. Make sure you have a big pile of glue sticks if you're going to be gluing this. And what I will do is lay one down. I'm going to put a little glue at the edge, lay one down. I'll glue that whole thing on. And then I'll come back. I want these all overlapped. So halfway into the lace, I'll put another little line of glue, a different piece of lace. Well, there I've got room for 2. You know, just glue them down all the way across. Layer it as much as you want. Now, if you are a sewer and you want to sew these on, what I did for mine is I laid them down on top of the bottom of my curtain. Ignore this blue line, that's for another demonstration, at my machine. So I put the edge of my bottom of my curtain in the sewing machine and started sewing. And as I sewed, I would just keep laying pieces down and overlap. Sew over that until you're all the way to the end. And then you have a clean line there with no seam, or here you'll have a seam, but it doesn't matter because that'll be covered with lace as well. Okay, so what I just showed you was this bottom layer of lace. Now I want to do a second layer of lace that will overlap that. And my lace is about 18 inches. It really ranges from 17 to 19 inches because I don't want it blunt across. I want it more wispy looking. And I went 10 inches, here's the one we just sewed, 10 inches above that line, and you'll glue them on there or wherever you want. And then you just glue this row on just like you did the bottom, overlapping. Now the bottom, I went a little extra. You really only need to go 1/2 inch overlap. And then mark above this 10 inches for me and glue that on. Okay, so next it's the flowers. And I have 9 flowers on my entire set of curtains here. And they're about 5.5 inches wide at the widest part. And they're completely glued. And I have them 13 inches apart from center to center. Everything's approximate. These do not have to be perfect. That's part of the beauty of them. So let's make a flower. I actually have a sewing tutorial on how to make fabric flowers. I'll put the link in my description, but these are going to be glued. So for the flowers on this set of curtains, I used Thrifted Bed Sheets. And so I use Thrifted Bed Sheets a lot on a lot of different things. And a person may worry about cooties or something, you know, getting sheets from a thrift store. But what I do is when I get them home, if I'm not ready to launder them, I leave them set in my garage. And then when I'm ready to wash them, I bring them in, throw them right in the washer on the hottest setting with bleach. And I've never had an issue. So I use Thrifted Bed Sheets. And let's see, I have my number written down here. Okay, so to make a flower that size, I went 65 inches long. So I will need 9 of these if I was to remake this set of curtains because I have 9 flowers. So 9 at 65 inches long. and 9 inches tall. Okay, so to start, I'm just going to fold that long piece of bed sheet in half. Then I'm going to just sort of scooch it over a second. Here's my little sample curtain. And I want, wherever you decide you want your flowers, it's nice to have an odd number so that you can put one flower right in the center. That's what I always do. And what I want to do is glue that right halfway on the lace and halfway on the curtain so that it rises halfway above the lace. So I'll start right in this, and that's what this blue line sort of represents. So I am just going to take an end of my fabric here. It's folded in half. And I'm just going to take just like 2 fingers and just kind of wrap it around my finger. And then I got to make sure I have lots of glue. And I'll just make kind of a big, maybe $half size pile of glue here. And take that little pinwheel that I just made and set it down there and hold it real good. That's a lot of glue to cool and harden, so just take your time and press that down and hold it until you feel like the glue is setting. And then I take the rest of this and I just twist and take my glue gun, and right up next to that little bud we just made, I'll put a little line of glue, maybe a couple inches long, twist and lay that down. It's better to have this too long, your original piece of fabric, because you can always trim it if you feel your flower is getting big enough. So I will just keep twisting, gluing, pressing that down. Okay, that's what the flower looks like. Okay, so the last step is to sew on all the little embellishments if you want. Now I have a lot of stuff tucked in here that you really can't see until you're close up, but it's just like a little trove of broken jewelry, vintage jewelry, kind of junk jewelry, but all together it's beautiful. Like in the center of each flower, I put some sort of doodad, and I'll go around and I'll move the camera down so you can get a close-up of other sections of this as well. And so inside, next to this flower, I have a button, just a random little rhinestone, a little piece of jewelry, a little leaf and button and buttons. And then I have these pearls, and I'll talk about them in a second. I'll show you what I have. Okay, I'm going to scoot this down so you can see another section of how I applied jewelry. Okay, so I have just like a little cluster here. This one I have a gold chain on, but mostly they're pearl swags. A lot of buttons. Maybe you have a collection of buttons and they're really pretty, but what are you going to do with them? This is a great way to use them. Here. I just love all these fun little trinkets. It makes it so special. Okay, so I'll show you how I glue those on. Super simple. Here's my little pretend curtain again. Now I have a piece like this. You would be surprised at how well hot glue holds these on, because I have tried to pluck pieces off of my curtain because I wanted it for a different project, and they're tough to get off. So I will just put a big glob of glue, maybe like a dime-sized mound, and just hold that firm until all that glue sets. Now I'm going to have to hold it while I talk because it's going to take a little bit of time to cool down. And then maybe I'll take a piece like this. This is a brooch. I have pinned brooches on my curtains. So if it didn't have a back, maybe that was just an earring. Hot glue it. Just put them wherever you want. You can come up into the curtain, wherever you want. and glue them down or pin them down. That's all there is to that. Okay, so the last step is the pearl swags. And so I go between each flower and do some sort of pearl swag. Now, I did do the gold chain on that one. Now, these are mostly pearl, and I find a lot of pearl necklaces at my thrift stores, and I don't have any problem. And so to glue these on, all I would do is lift up one flower, put a big glob of hot glue, press my necklace, and then put another glob of hot glue on top of it, press my flower down on top of it, and that side would be attached. Swag it over to your next flower, and then you have all these pretty swoopy pearls in between. And another thing you can do, and I have done, you can buy, now this was probably from Hobby Lobby. I've had it for a long time and haven't used it yet. But in the wedding section at Hobby Lobby in my town, they have all these pearls on like spools, like yards and yards. If you don't have, a lot of pearl necklaces, you can use those too. Okay, so how do you clean these? What I do for just a general cleaning is vacuum them, vacuum the dust off. And if you get a spot on it, spot clean it. Now there are lots of different ways. Instead of, maybe you want it completely upcycled and don't want to go to like Walmart and buy panels. I've seen shears often at thrift stores, and I've made these with shears. I've made them with lace curtains, which for me, pretty easy to find at thrift stores. I've used burlap, and one of my favorite, I made a custom order for a lady one time. So before, I used to make upcycled clothes. When my kids were little and in school, I did custom decorating for people's homes, window treatments, faux painting, decorative painting on furniture, duvet covers, sofa pillows. Anyway, what I made for her was so beautiful. So say you went to Walmart and bought white curtains. What I did was do, instead of the doilies, I did a patchwork. So with like vintage white chenille bedspread, cut out a big square. I sewed mine on, but you can glue it on, glued one on there, or maybe a white piece of velvet next in a rectangle. And it was just this luscious textural, white on white, patterned curtains with the lace. So beautiful. So use your imagination and have fun with it. Thank you so much for watching.